Hey there folks, today we are looking at arguably one of the most popular strategy games of all time, Settlers of Catan. So we're going to show you how to play. If you stick around till the end, we'll give you some tips as well. If you do enjoy this content or want to support me, see some more of it, any of that kind of thing, please do lightly whisper to that subscribe button. That would help me out a bunch. Thanks a bunch. Let's dive on into it. Alright folks, so the setup of Settlers of Catan, we're going to take these outside pieces and then the inside tiles, put them all together. You can see right here we've got numbers showing you how they go together. And then these tiles, there are some specific setups in the rulebook you can do, or if you're like me, you can just try to make sure that no things are the same. So if these two are the same right here, we could say, well, let's go ahead and take this and move them to where they are not the same, just like that. And then what we're going to want to do with these tiles that have the letters on them, we're going to go A, B, C, D, all the way around, and then you can flip those. So what that's going to do is it's basically going to make sure that these numbers are a little more even. And so you don't want, you can see the ones in red. This game we're going to be rolling 2 dice, and there you go. 7 is the most common roll that you can get with 2 dice. Now there's no 7 out here, that's going to be the robber, we'll explain that in a minute, but the most common beyond that are going to be the 6 and the 8, and you can see that those are not right next to each other. So the numbers are supposed to be fairly balanced out so that the game is a little more fair. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few more elements here, and then we'll dive on into what the game looks like. You've got these cards over here. You're going to go ahead and just put them in a stack, shuffle them on up. Got a couple of tiles that are going to give you some extra points, and so whenever you get those in the game, you'll put that in front of you, but just set them to the side for now. Each player is going to take their own color, all of their pieces of their own color, set them in front of themselves, as well as the building costs little tile, I guess you could say, and then we're going to put each of these cards in their own stack. So don't shuffle up the cards. That's a very common problem. You pull the cards out, you start shuffling. These do all have the same back, but you don't want to shuffle them. You want to put them into each of these different resources. Hey there folks, thought we could see Yossi real quick. You can see the little cat right there. How cute is that? Anyhow, I found it very confusing as I was looking to edit this part right here. So I just wanted to explain something real quick. So when you are beginning the game, each person's going to put 2 settlements with 1 road on each of those. But you're going to go in a certain order. So if I am going first, I would go ahead and place my first one, then the second person would place both of theirs, then I would place my second one. Does that make sense? So you're placing 2 apiece. So Hayden gets to go ahead and put his first one down. Boom, it's on the board. Then Katie, my wife, she gets to put both of hers down. Then it comes back to me and I put mine down. So that's a 2-player game. If you're playing with more people, let's play a 4-player game, I would go first. And then we go around in a circle. Everyone would play 1. And then whoever's at the very end, they get to play both of theirs. And then it's going to come back around the table. So I would go last as well to place my second one. So it's just a way to balance that out. Hopefully that makes sense. Sorry it was not very clear in the video. I apologize. So now, starting the game, you decide who is going to go first. So if this is a 2-player game, let's say I go first. I would take one of these guys right here. These are called settlements, so that's 1 victory point. And I would want to find somewhere that's good on the board. So I'm probably looking at these numbers that are red. So let's go ahead and put this right here. And you can see by the different dots, the one that have more dots are better. So you're going to set your little settlement in between 3 of these. So if I wanted to, I could actually go over here, and that would get me a port right there, a brick port. Now I don't want to do that. I might want to do that later on, but you're going to start out and put that somewhere, and then let's say maybe I do want to get to a brick port, so I could put my road facing it. So each person is going to put one of those and a road. That's how you're going to start out the game. Last thing for setup, actually, wherever you put your last settlement, you get one of each of those resources. So we would get one sheep that is going along with this space right here. You can see the background there. We would get one brick that goes along with this right here. And then we would get one wheat that goes along with that right there. Now we also have the other resources. We've got the ore right there that you can see is this back right here. And then we have the wood that is this back right here. So then we're going to roll the dice. There's a 2. That's a really uncommon roll. If no one has any settlements or cities on a 2, it's just going to go to the next person. You would have a chance to spend your stuff if you want. But as you get different rolls, like let's say a 6 is rolled, I would get one resource for a city or for a settlement right there. Now, if later on in the game I upgraded this to a city, not only is that worth 2 victory points, as you can see on this tile right here, worth 2 victory points, the city down there. And that shows you the cost for all of these different things. These are the different things you can buy. And it does say down here, a city replaces an already built settlement. So let's say we spent what we needed and we would replace this settlement with a city. So now if a 6 is rolled, or if a 5 is rolled, or if a 9 is rolled, any of those resources that this is touching, we're going to get 2 of that. So if someone rolls a 5, we're going to take 2 ore. So we get the 2 ore, put them in our little stash, and you are going to want to keep these secret during the game, but I'm just setting them out so that we can see what's going on here. So here are the costs if you wanted to build a road, and you can build as much as you can on your turn. Now, if we wanted to build a road, that's going to cost us 1 wood and 1 brick. So if we paid 1 wood and 1 brick back to the bank over here, we would take one of these and put it somewhere off of where we're already going. Now, the longest road right here is worth 2 victory points. Now, this can move. So if someone has 5 road segments, so right now we've got 4 right there. Now if we place a 5th, let's say on this turn, we place a 5th right there, then we would take the longest road right here and we would keep it in front of us. That is going to be something that everyone can see. Now if someone else comes over and plays a 6th road and it beats us, we would have to give this to them. So this and the largest army are going to move from person to person depending on whoever has the largest army or the longest road. So those victory points can move back and forth. Other victory points that you get are the cities are worth 2, settlements are worth 1, and then there's some cards in here. So these cards right here, these are development cards. You can see those right there. And some of these have victory points as well. So to buy one of these, you would need an ore, a sheep, and a wheat. So we could take those and pay for them and just take one of these from the top. Now here are just some examples of what you might find in there. There are some, like we said, that are just worth victory points. You probably want to keep that hidden for most of the game so people don't know. But then you also have knights. So when you play a knight, you can say, I'm playing the knight, and you get to move the robber, which is this guy right now. So let's go ahead and explain the robber. Whenever you roll a 7, you get to take this robber and move it somewhere. So I could put it over here. If, you wouldn't ever want to put it on your own, but let's pretend we weren't white for a second. I could put the robber over here, and then whenever that number is rolled, they don't get whatever that is. And when you very first do that as well, you get to take a card randomly from that person, whoever owns that space. If 2 people were on a space with that number, then you would get to choose between the 2 of them. And that brings up another good rule, that when you are placing settlements, it has to be at least 2 spaces away from others. So I could not put this right here because it's only 1 space away. But if we go 1, 2, I could place it right there. And it would have to be 1, 2 away from cities as well. So anyone could do that. You have to play off of where you've already played your roads, and so you can use that as strategy to block other people. If we wanted to go here and different things, we could do that. You just have to build off of where you already are. So if somebody came around here and built right here, we wouldn't be able to basically share that road. You can definitely block people with these roads. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And that is how the robber works. Now back to the knight. If you have right here, the first player to have 3 knights that you play, get this card. So if we played 3 knights in front of us, we would take this, and again, we would keep that. We would have those 2 victory points until someone had a larger army than ourselves. Another couple options of cards that you can have in the developmental cards. You could have these green cards that are one-time cards that you can play. So like this card right here, place 2 new roads as if you just built them. So we could take 2 roads from our stash and we could play them. So we could say, oh, well, we want to try and make our way over to the 6 over here, and then we want to get down here and get to the port. Just like that, and then you would just discard that card. Another card right here would be Monopoly. This is another example of something you might see. When you play this card, announce one type of resources. All other players must give you all of that resource. So I could say brick, and then everyone would have to give me all of the brick that they have in their hand. So that can be really helpful. All these cards are good. There's a few more, but that is most of what's in there. And the majority of the cards are these knights as well, just so you know a little bit about the game there. Now, I did mention this port right here. This is a wood port, and to use a port, you have to have a settlement or city on it. So you can see these 2 kind of roads coming down to that, and there's one for each of these different types. So we got the wood, we got the wheat, we got the brick, the other 2 are over there as well, and we do have some of these 3-to-1s. So this is a 2-to-1. So if I have 2 wood right here, if I have 2 wood right here, and then I also have this port, I can trade 2 of these in for 1 of anything else. So maybe I needed an ore. I could trade those during my turn because I own that port. And that would be the same for the other ports, just with different resources. And then the 3-to-1 right here, if I had that, of course, you'd have to have roads to get there in the first place, but if I had that right there, I could trade 3 of anything for 1 of anything else. So if I had 3 of these right here, I could trade 3 of those for maybe I need a brick. I could take that, and you could do that during your turn. You can also wheel and deal with people as well. You can say, hey, I've got a wood. Does anyone have a sheep? You know, I'll give you two wood for a sheep. You can definitely do that type of thing in this game. And you are playing until someone reaches 10 victory points. As soon as someone does, they win the game automatically. So what you're doing in this game is rolling the dice, doing whatever that says. Every single time you roll, everyone is going to take resources based on that. So if you have a 6 here and then later on you have this 6 over here, then you would get resources for both of those if a 6 is rolled. So you're looking at those numbers, and those numbers activate every single time there's a roll that goes along with that. So that is the game Settlers of Catan. I don't think we're really missing anything. I think that's pretty much everything. This is a really helpful cheat sheet. Make sure you keep that in mind as well. But that is Settlers of Catan. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more about how to play the game. So one tip that I would highly recommend is to take your time when you're putting your very first settlement. I mean, all of your settlements at the beginning of the game, take your time, because that can make or break your game. Also, it can be really helpful at the beginning of the game to have certain resources. And so earlier on, having wood and brick are extremely, extremely important. Being able to have those roads and being able to have half of what you need for the settlements. Again, you can always wheel and deal with people and say, hey, I'll give you some brick, or I'll give you some wood for the sheep or the wheat. You can generally make that kind of a thing work. Later on in the game, getting ore is really helpful. And so everything is helpful, but there's definitely a leaning to the beginning of the game, and if you get off to a bad start, it can be really, really hard to come back in this game. So I would say really keep in mind brick and wood at the beginning of the game. See if you can have some decent numbers on those, and take your time as you're looking at your options for when you're putting your very first couple of settlements down starting out the game. Another thing to keep in mind is maybe another strategy you could do is you could look around and say, hey, I don't think that I can get those other resources that I'd like, but I can go over here, which is a really good number for wheat, let's say. And then you can take your other settlement, and you can either start down here on a port. So I could go over here, wheat is an 8, that's a good number, and then I could put my other settlement on a wheat port. Now you might be missing out on some other numbers, so maybe you just want to put it somewhere that's close to a wheat port so that you're not directly going for that, but ports are definitely a way that you can alleviate some of the not having all the resources that you want. So you don't have to have every single resource, but do consider when you put your settlements, do you have room to grow? Do you have room to either connect your two settlements? You might want to do that and go for longest road, or you might have some options to be able to put those resources down to where you can grow out into other resources that you want. Put the settlements down to go into other resources you want. And then you probably will get the hang of this when you're playing the game. But when you're upgrading to a city, just be really mindful of where you put that, because where you put that, you now get 2 resources instead of 1 when that number's rolled. So if I'm on an 8 over here, instead of getting a 1, that's a really common roll. Instead of getting 1, now I get 2. So I might want to put that on those numbers instead of some that aren't as strong. So definitely keep that in mind as well. And then do keep an eye on your partners. If other people, the other people you're playing against, if other people, if you have one of these, either the largest army or longest road, keep an eye on other people, because they might try to steal that from you. They might try to build a larger army, longer road, and so you're going to want to keep those points if you can, or maybe you want to go to the flip side and just not even play with those in mind. But you really might need those, so do try and balance that out. So those are just a few tips for Settlers of Catan first game. Another just little house rule that I like to do to make it a little more even. Looking at this game, there's 2 6s on the woods right here, and so I might move one of those to something else. The best number right now is a 9 that's on brick, and like we said, brick is important, so I might move around the numbers just to make it fairly even like that. But the book does have a setup for the beginner as well. You can specifically put the tiles and numbers how they say it, and it should balance out really well. But that is Settlers of Catan. Hopefully this helps you guys get it out to the table and be able to maybe even play a little bit better, more fluid of a game as well. Thank you very much.